Hello, folks, and welcome to our webinar on integrating Kaizen into your quality management system, brought to you by Kaizen Institute and our media partners at Quality Digest. I just thought I'd remind you once more that if you mouse over the middle of your screen, you'll have a dashboard come up. One of the icons on there will refer to the Q&A. If you do have questions at any time during the webinar, please feel free to type those into that Q&A box, and Mike will address them at the end of the webinar. I'm your host, Chuck Cherry, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mike Mickelwright, who will be leading us through our presentation today. Mike is the Kaizen Director of Operations for the US and has over 30 years of experience in leadership of Kaizen, lean, and quality groups, and he's also the author of 2 books, Out of Another Bleeping Crisis and Lean ISO 9001. Our webinar agenda includes a question and answer period at the end of Mike's presentation. If you have questions at any time, please feel free to type them into that conversation box, and we'll deal with them at the end of the webinar. Thanks, and take it away, Mike.
Well, thank you, Chuck. I thought I'd wear my mask today so that you all recognize me. This is actually the way I look when I go to bed, so maybe we'll leave it off. But I'd like to welcome you all. Thanks once again, Chuck. This webinar is entitled Integrated Kaizen into a Quality Management System. And once again, we have a lot of people who are attending. We had over 400 registrants, so thank you very much. And like last week, when we had the webinar called The Vision of Zero Defects is Still Alive, we have a mixture of quality type folks and lean folks and or Kaizen people. And so it's kind of neat for this particular webinar because it's about the integration of the two and how important it is to do so. So for those of you who are in the quality field, you can look at this as a way to progress your career so that you develop your quality assurance systems, your quality management systems to be much more effective by using Kaizen culture, Kaizen tools, and integrating it fully into one system. And those of you who have a Kaizen background or a lean background, you can also see that how a quality management system can help you to improve and sustain the improvements that have been made. Because the two, as you'll see during this presentation, are very much, or should be, very much integrated into one another. So what we're going to do also during this presentation is just to kind of give you an idea is to refer to ISO 9001 based quality management system. Now it can be any kind of quality management system. It could be any that's based on ISO 9001. So it could be 1345, the medical devices, or 16949 in automotive industry, or it could be even 14001, the environmental standard. Also, if you follow the Code of Federal Regulations or CFR regulations or FDA requirements, same concept. It's the whole integration of a management system with Kaizen methodologies, tools, and culture. So I'd like to welcome you all, and also welcome you as our media partner, Quality Digest. Many of you probably subscribe to Quality Digest. I've had a relationship with Quality Digest for many years. And they do cover many things, including quality, Kaizen, lean, and continuous improvement. And so they're very much in tune and in sync with this webinar and what we are talking about and what we're preaching about. In qualitydigest.com, if you went ahead and searched, you would find over 1,700 references to the word Kaizen. So thank you, media partner, Quality Digest. So what are we going to cover today? Well, of course, we always have to start off with an introduction. And then after the introduction, we will talk about what does Kaizen bring to an ISO-based quality management system. And then we reverse the tables and we say, well, what does ISO-based quality management system bring to Kaizen? And then we talk about how the two kind of overlap. And we'll go down different levels. We'll talk about principles first and show how the two relate. And then we'll talk about culture and business practices at a second level and how the two relate. Kaizen and the quality management system. And then finally, we'll talk about the tools and show the relationship between the two so that you can work to develop a quality management system or a business management system or a continuous improvement management system that is based on Kaizen principles, culture, and practices. Now, where did this all start? Well, my background, as some of you know, is both in the lean world or the Kaizen world, as well as the quality management world. So I've got throughout my career, I've dealt and dabbled in both entities, but always working in both areas. And one day, many years ago, probably about 12, 15 years ago, an organization which I had just helped to get certified to 16949, which was the automotive standard, the general manager came up to me after they got certified, and he says, "Hey, Mike, I want you to review this document and to give me your feedback." And the document was what he called a waste walk form. He says he wants to introduce it to all of his people so that they start looking for waste and they identify waste. So I looked at the form and I said, I saw that it has a description, a field for description of the waste, and then it had a field for the cause, what was the cause of the waste, and then it had a field for what is the plan, what is the action plan to get rid of the waste, and then there was a section called a verification of the plan or the effectiveness. And so I looked at it and I said, well, this form looks very, very similar to the corrective and preventive action form that you have in your ISO system. And he said, yeah, I know, but you know, I don't want the two to get muddied up. I don't want the one to taint the other one, and this is something new that I want to do, a waste walk form, and that's already kind of existed for some time. And I think that was the first time it hit me that, wow, what a waste there is in a way in the systems that we develop within organizations. One that might be quality focused and one that might be Kaizen focused. And yet there can be waste between the two, because in this particular example, there are two forms that were being used and they're almost interchangeable. And they had the same thing, but the people would be confused. That's inventory of forms. And then when we looked into it even further, there were really about 5 or 6 or 7 forms that related to a continuous improvement process that were all very, very similar. So that's inventory of documents, and we all know that inventory is waste, but it's also confusing to everyone. So it hit me way back then that there's a lot of waste that's going on, and we have our lean folks, our Kaizen folks who are going in one direction, and we have our quality management system folks who are going in the other direction, and sometimes they're competing for resources and attention when really they should not be, because they all have the same focus, the same purpose. So the realization was that waste can exist between and within a Kaizen system and a quality management system if they're acting as silos. Now, isn't that ironic? Because what we do in the Kaizen world, and what some people do in the quality world too as well, is talk about breaking down the silos. Let's not have silos. And we're always talking about out there, operations, the office work, logistics, and it's always out there, but sometimes we don't look within what we do. And so we could also, in our worlds of continuous improvement, whether it's quality or Kaizen or Six Sigma, we can also have silos in our own continuous improvement world. And so we should practice what we preach and try to break down those silos, as Dr. Deming said many years ago. So we have an organization in which you have a top guy, and perhaps there's a lean Six Sigma group, or maybe there's a lean group and a Six Sigma group. And then there's a quality group, and they all are structured in such a way. And so we have competition for resources and focus and improvement projects and attention. Now, they both have, excuse me, they both have, when you really look at it, the same purpose. I mean, maybe it's slightly different, one can argue, but both Kaizen and a quality management system is about continuous improvement, always improvement. Now, the one little difference is that the quality management system that's based on ISO 9001 talks about continual improvement, not continuous improvement. And there is a bit of a difference between the two. Continual is more periodic in nature, happens every so often, whereas continuous is never ending. But they're both focused in on improvement. And so you got to think that if they both have the same overall purpose, isn't there some advantages that we can take advantage of? Isn't there some overlapping requirements and positive aspects of both? If we're both heading in, both systems are heading in the same direction. So the question you have to ask is, could there be duplication? And I ask it twice in this particular page, just to demonstrate that what we have are almost two different systems, and there is quite a bit of duplication when you break it down and you look at what's really going on. And so the purpose of this webinar is to show you that duplication, but how they can complement each other. How a Kaizen system, how Kaizen tools and culture and principles can really complement a quality management system if used appropriately. Now, on the left-hand side, you have perhaps a perceived difficulty. It really depends on how one rolls it out. At the Kaizen Institute, we have methods and ways to sustain, but in many organizations, it's a difficulty. Just we make improvements, but we can't sustain. Everyone talks about we can't sustain. We have a hard time doing this. And yet when you look at ISO 9001 in the early pages, even before you get to the standard, in quotes, it says the purpose is to plan, implement, and control the processes needed to meet the requirements for the provision of products and services. Well, if that's the purpose, that kind of sounds like the word sustain, doesn't it? I mean, it's about sustaining. And so ISO 9001, regardless of whether or not how it's rolled out, or regardless of how well it's implemented, the purpose is to plan, implement, and control. The purpose is to sustain what we have, sustain the current state, and then improve upon that. So you would think that, well, if that's the purpose, again, how do we find a way to merge the two? Now, again, in some areas, some organizations, they also might feel that a Kaizen difficulty might be that there's a lack of structure. And again, in the Kaizen Institute, we do have a structure, but in many rollouts of other organizations, that structure doesn't exist. And what we have is a series of tools, independent tools that have no relationship, no rhyme or reason. It just depends on what you need at that point in time. So it's a bunch of tools thrown into a doctor's bag, and you pull out the right tool for the right problem. But then you look at ISO and you say, oh, well, it's got a system. There is a nice structure. Overall, it's a well-written structure, and it's been improved many times since 1987, and it's been improved, and yet it's an entire system and provides the entire structure. So maybe the two can be integrated, where one has a need and the other has a way to solve that need. Let's find a way to integrate the two. Now, let's look on the left side. The left side now is a QMS difficulty, not the Kaizen. So on the left side before is a Kaizen difficulty. Now we have a QMS difficulty. And one of the difficulties that many people talk about over the years is that, yeah, we got certified, but where's the value? We're not getting much out of this. It's not driving bottom line results. We do it for the certification, and we do it because our customers require it. But yet it's really not driving bottom line value. Now it could, it absolutely could. It depends on one's focus. If the focus is on certification and getting by with the minimum requirements and keeping out the real world from the auditor and preparing for the auditor, which is like cheating, if that's the focus, then yes, you're not going to get any value out of a quality management system, a certified quality management system. In my opinion, and that's what I've seen in many organizations over the years. But with Kaizen has a reputation of providing bottom line results. Absolutely, that's what we do. It's what others do. Our focus is providing a return on investment and making sure that we are affecting the business positively in terms of cash flow, in terms of material flow, in terms of quality, in terms of productivity, et cetera, et cetera. So if we're getting good results and we have the same purpose, again, can't we use the Kaizen tools and cultures to make the quality management system that much more valuable? But how do you make it effective? That's always the question. We don't have a way to make it effective. I mean, when you look at the standard and read the standard, and by the way, I have the standard here just in case anyone has a copy, has a question, and I can refer to it. But how do you make it effective? Because it is about effectiveness, but there aren't any ways that tell us in the standard how to make it effective. The key word, how. And yet Kaizen, it's all about the how. It provides us with the culture and the tools to make our system, our overall system, effective. So Kaizen provides the value. I mean, there's no reason, I mean, there is a big reason, I should say, why we refer to value stream mapping. It's about mapping the value stream. It's about focus on the value of the processes, and Kaizen provides the value. and provides the bottom line results. A quality management system can provide the overall structure of how to get there. It provides the what. Kaizen provides the how. And so we want to integrate. And we'll talk about how to integrate the two and show the relationship between the two. Now this slide you might be saying, oh my gosh, what are you talking about here? This is kind of an extra slide just to drive home a point that I think I've made many times throughout my career, is that sometimes the word quality is a detrimental word. I know a lot of you are probably quality managers and quality directors and quality coordinators, etc. But with the people who are outside of the quality organization, they think of quality as perhaps those who just affect quality, and that's all. It has nothing to do with productivity. It has nothing to do with efficiency. It has nothing to do with lead time, but it does, and it should. So I've always kind of tried to de-stress the term quality and look more at continuous improvement or a business management system, because quality is pigeonholed, and many others, like in the Kaizen world, they think of quality and a quality management system as just those guys that comply with a requirement rather than driving true improvements. So I find it useful to downplay the word quality or quality management system and look at perhaps bringing the two together, bringing Kaizen and a quality management system into something more robust like a continuous improvement management system or a business management system. Now, what does that system consist of? Well, I always looked at the three different levels or layers. And the three different layers are, it starts off at the highest level, principles. Principles first. What are those principles? What are they? How do we relay those principles? How do we communicate those principles? What are the actual principles? And it starts at the highest level. Okay. Then the next level that's extremely important is to make sure that we have the right culture and build that culture and build in the right business practices. And we'll see how to do that in a Kaizen management system or a Kaizen tools. And then the third level is the tools. Now, the reason I show this is because the importance of focusing in on, we must first understand what are our principles. What are the principles of Kaizen? What are the principles of quality management system? And really focus in on that. If anyone's ever attended one of my webinars or training sessions in the past, I know I overuse this quote, but I'm going to do it again. This is one of my favorite quotes. Thomas Jefferson, he said, be flexible in style, but unwavering like a rock in principle. Now, the styles that we see on this diagram here, this pyramid, is a third level. They're the tools. And what we're saying is that we should be flexible in the styles, be flexible in the tools that we use, but unwavering like a rock in principle. So we have to really understand what are those key principles and make sure that everything is properly aligned. And that when we start a new initiative, whatever that might be, that it aligns well with whatever our company's principles are, or whatever the Kaizen principles are if you subscribe to Kaizen and or a quality management system. So we're going to start at the top and show the relationship between Kaizen and a quality management system, and then we'll go to the second level and show the relationship between culture and practices between the two, and then the same thing for the tools. Now, I did write a book. I'm not trying to push it. It is out there. I wrote it 10 years ago, and it was about the integration of Lean, ISO 9001, and it took into account a lot of what we're presenting today. So, the first question is, what does Kaizen bring into an ISO-based quality management system? All right, so let's refer to that. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll reverse it and talk about what does ISO bring into Kaizen. First and foremost, Kaizen brings into a quality management system principles. Now, I know that some of you are probably saying, wait a minute, ISO 9001 is based on principles, and it is. It's in the early sections. It's before you actually get to the standard. And there are a list of principles, and I'll show you that. But in all my workings with registrars, and I taught a lot of registrars myself, but working with registrars and working with organizations to get them certified, principles were hardly ever talked about. It was all about the standard. There was hardly any focus on principles. In the Kaizen world, it's a different animal. There's a lot of focus on principles. We focus in on it all the time. and we go back to it oftentimes when we talk about what are we going to implement or how we're going to implement some things, and make sure that it's properly aligned with the principles. Now, at the Kaizen Institute, we talk about 5 key principles. Let me go back up for a second so you don't look at this too much. First of all, there are many different sources of principles, and they're really good sources. If you wanted to look at the Shingo principles for the Shingo Prize, they're excellently written and documented and defined. What are the principles behind the Shingo Prize? Some of you may have read The Toyota Way by Jeffrey Liker. Jeffrey talked about the 14 principles of the Toyota Way, which is excellently written too. Very good description of the 14 principles. Dr. Deming, many years ago, talked about Chuck, are we okay? Can you see everything? Because I had a flash here.
Yep. Just your video has a frozen mic. We can still see the screen.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, we'll leave it frozen. I hope I've got a good pose there. I know how that works out. So what else? We talked about principles. Dr. Deming talked about his 14 points or the 14 principles. So there's many different sources about principles, and they all overlap, and they're all right, because principles last forever. They never die. A principle today is good today, 100 years ago, and 100 years from now. It's a way that focuses in a certain way of action and behavior an organization has. Now, the principles at the Kaizen Institute, we talked about 5 main principles, and I'm just going to briefly go over these. This is what we refer to. Number 1 is creating customer value, and so that's why we talk about things like value stream mapping and identifying customer interests and experience, and the focus is on really what are the customer's needs. Are they interested in reduction of lead time and reduction of waste, and increased productivity, increased quality, etc. Another key principle of the Kaizen Institute and our Kaizen principles is flow efficiency. There's a constant elimination and focus on waste, whether it's through value stream mapping processes, doing Gemba walks, Kamishibai, etc., but it's the focus on the wastes. Then the third principle is about effectiveness at the Gemba. Gemba meaning, of course, the location where the value is actually being added. And so we need to have value or effectiveness at that location to ensure good productivity and good quality, etc. But we need leaders to spend time at the Gemba through Gemba walks, to doing Kamishibai or layered process audits, by involving themselves and immersing themselves into value stream mapping and Kaizen events. The fourth key principle, and this is hugely important, is people involvement, and constantly involving them, especially in daily Kaizen activities. And then finally is visual management. Visual management is, hey, seeing how you're doing today. We can see exactly where we are today with regard to meeting our goals, meeting our objectives for the day, perhaps hour by hour, half day by half day, full day by full day, and seeing what the problems are, because no problems are hidden. That's the idea of visual management. No problems are hidden. Everything's out in the open. It's a key principle. So everything that we do is based on these principles. Now, what else does Kaizen bring to the table? A key focus on respect. Whereas,
Mike,
yes.
Just want to say that the slides aren't changing on the screen.
Okay.
We can hear you fine, but we're still on the principles ribbon slide.
Okay. I am going to unshare and then I will share again.
Sounds good. Okay, well, now we've got the respect slide up.
That's the slide I was hoping you'd see. Still seeing it?
Looks good, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. So, whoops. So respect is so everything that all the tools that we preach and talk about within Kaizen, the Kaizen world, is about respect for the individual. Even if you look at something as the most simplest tool that many of you may know about, 5S. You might say, well, how does 5S relate to respect for the individual? It does, big time, because in 5S, what we're doing is setting up workplace organization so that mistakes don't happen. We organize and we set in order the workplace for purposes of efficiency and not making mistakes. Because if someone can't find a tool, or they injure themselves, or they pick up the wrong tool because they couldn't find the tool that they needed, then there's a mistake that happens, an error, a defect that is created, and we blame the person. So it's a blame environment. We don't want the blame environment. So we 5S, we develop workplace organization. We improve the workplace. And this is out of respect for the individual so that we have systems in place so that we don't blame people. Kaizen brings us leadership. Leadership how-tos. It's about developing people. You'll read about this and we preach about this, but in any book you read out there, we talk about not just developing processes and products, but we're developing people. And the tools that we use are Gemba walks and Qms Audits and involvement in Kaizen events and how to properly coach people out of respect, how to properly teach people through tools like training within industry. This is about leadership. We're developing leaders within the organization. Whereas an ISO 9001 system talks about you should do this, but not about how to do that. And Kaizen would give the how. Kaizen brings us the thought, the philosophy of one-piece flow instead of doing everything in batches, because batches don't work as well. So as much as possible, we try to get towards developing products and services in one-piece flow. Okay, well, how does that affect a quality management system? You might think, well, there is no effect, there's no relationship, but that's not true. Because I've helped develop many quality management systems and I've seen many quality management systems in the past. And the question I have here is, what is batched in the quality management system? And I can tell you a few things that are batched. The internal audit system, where you do internal audits once every 6 months or once a year. We do them all in a batch. Some companies I know do 1 full week of audits for their whole company in 1 week. That's a batch. Batches are not effective. Or they do management review once a year or once every 6 months or once a quarter. How can you review the system once a year or once every 6 months in a batch? That's not effective. It's too late. Kaizen brings us the concept of doing these things more often in frequent tidbits, frequent and short. That's why we suggest and we strongly recommend and we roll out with all of our companies things like daily Kaizen, so that you're doing daily management review in short increments, so that we're on top of things and we can make changes and steer to the correct course. Kaizen brings to the table value stream mapping. Value stream mapping is very process oriented, big picture oriented, system oriented, so that we can drive the value. This is where we start off. Many of our implementations and transformations with companies is large end-to-end value stream mapping, so that we can see all the waste in the major processes within the organization and start to identify that waste and make improvements. It brings us the how. ISO 9001 is about this. It doesn't say anything about value stream mapping, but it does talk about, as I showed you in the very beginning, improving the process and being process focused. It brings us the spirit of continuous improvement, where we're making little changes, little improvements every single day by everybody. That's what continuous improvement is. Small changes made by everybody every single day. Those are key words, not just once in a while when there's a problem, a complaint, or a defect, or whatever it is, but every day. Kaizen brings us to the table. Kaizen brings us the hows. It brings us all the hows, all the tools, all the ways that we can implement an ISO 9001 quality management system really effectively, so that we gain a lot of value for the whole company. Now, to be fair, let's reverse it and talk about the opposite. What does ISO, an ISO-based quality management system, bring to Kaizen? Well, a lot of things. One, focus on quality. Okay, yes, Kaizen does focus on quality, but is it the primary focus? I don't think so. Primary focus is about lead time and reducing the waste in an overall value stream process, so that we reduce that lead time overall. Okay, definitely Kaizen's focus on quality, but a quality management system provides even more focus on quality and understanding variation and product quality. That's important. And so that, bringing that to the Kaizen mindset is important, and it's very beneficial for the overall system. Quality management system brings us document control. I mean, how many times do we have Kaizen people, operational people who are developing standards, visual standards, and they'll put them out on the machines. They'll throw them out in different areas, and there's no document control. I remember right before the COVID virus came about and all the lockdowns that started to occur, I was talking to a company, I was working with a company, and they say, before an audit, before a quality management system audit, before a registrar comes to their facility to do an audit, they take all the lean documents down, all the visual standards down, because they're not controlled. It's like, oh my gosh, no, that's not the way we should be doing things. We're hiding things. We should be addressing it. Document control is a good thing. It is a good thing. And so lean people, Kaizen people should do that, should have that, but we should make it a system where it doesn't slow down our improvement cycle. And maybe we do value stream mapping on the document control process to do that. A quality management system tells us that we got to get customer feedback, and we also have to evaluate our suppliers and their performance. Kaizen doesn't really do that. So this is going above and beyond Kaizen. And these are good things. We do need customer feedback. This might be one of our key KPIs. That's redundant. This is one of our key KPIs. And supplier evaluations. We need them to improve. We need to show them what to do or help them, but we have to provide data to them and drive that improvement. Quality management system helps do that. Quality management system brings us calibration. It's important. We got to do it. Whereas Kaizen doesn't even talk about calibration. So it is part of the overall system. Quality management system also focuses in on and stresses verification of corrective action results. Okay, so in Kaizen we have definitely problem-solving tools. We have a 3C, which is a concern, cause, countermeasure form. We have an A3, which is an 8-step problem-solving format. We have many different tools that are focused on root cause analysis and corrective actions, and we definitely preach it. But the one thing that maybe we don't do sometimes, or some implementations don't do, is have a process to go back and verify the results and make sure that happens. We do that at the Kaizen Institute through daily Kaizen and make sure that the results are verified. But a lot of other implementations don't stress the verification of corrective actions to determine if they're effective and to learn from those. So we can roll it out even further. That's part of PDCA. So a quality management system based on an ISO 9001 standard provides us the what's. Big picture. Here's the what's. Thou shalt do this. Thou shalt do this. But not how do we do it? How do we do it? Well, we need to find ways to integrate. So we talk here in this section about system integration. What are the similarities now between the two? So I talked about the differences, what one has and the other does not have, but now we talk about what are some of the similarities. And it starts at the principles. So we'll look at the principles level first. And this is an important page. This is showing the Kaizen principles down the left-hand side. These are the ones I just shared with you in that other document. These are the Kaizen Institute principles, creating customer value, flow efficiency, etc. But then if you look in the early stages of ISO 9001, you would see 7 principles. They are customer focus. Well, create customer value and customer focus are pretty close to the same. Flow efficiency on Kaizen principles, number 2. What does that relate to? Number 4 on ISO 9001. It's a process approach, and it relates to improvement overall. So there's a strong relationship between that Kaizen principle and the ISO 9001 principles. Gemba effectiveness. What does that relate to in ISO 9001? Leadership, as well as evidence-based decision making, because we got to go to the Gemba. We got to see what's really going on. Evidence-based. Number 4, people involvement. Well, of course, that relates on the ISO 9001 side to engagement of people, direct relationship, but also relationship management, number 7. And number 5, Kaizen principle, visual management. That relates to evidence-based decision making. So we see our data, we see how we're doing, real data, real facts, real time data, and we see how we're doing. And so we make decisions based on that real time data. So I think this is maybe perhaps one of the most important pages, because if our principles are the same for ISO 9001 and a quality management system and Kaizen, then we don't have any disagreement. We have to find a way to integrate because they're both trying to accomplish the same thing. And so that's what we're talking about. That's the whole purpose of this webinar. So the standard requirements really start in section 4 of the standard, as many of you know, section 4.1 and so forth. But early up front in the ISO standard, it talks in general about a process approach, 0.2, the process approach. And it says, understanding and managing interrelated processes as a system contributes to the organization's effectiveness and efficiency in achieving its intended results. Blah, 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 right? That's what you think. Wow, a lot of good words. Yeah, we do that. I think we do that. But how? How do you do that? I mean, when we talk about value stream mapping, value stream mapping is about understanding and managing interrelated processes as a system that contributes to our overall effectiveness and the targets and the efficiency in achieving our results. This could be almost a definition of value stream mapping, or why we do value stream mapping. We want to make sure that we are not department focused. So ISO 9001 and Kaizen is not about being department focused. It's about being process focused. You saw the quote from the previous page. From an ISO standpoint, we know that from a Kaizen standpoint, it's process focused. Process, process, process is the most important thing. Also, what's another similarity between the two? They're both based on plan, do, check, act. You look at the early stages of ISO 9001 before you get to the actual requirements. It talks about plan, do, check, act. I'll show you a slide. Of course, we all know in the Kaizen world, it's all about plan, do, check, act. We plan our improvements, we do our improvements, we check on the results of our improvements with data and see how, and audits and see how we're doing. And then we take actions. We either roll it out, we improve from there even further, we develop standards, but we roll it out and it's a continuous cycle. Now, the standard, this is a summary of the ISO 9001 standard. This is it. And you can see plan, do, check, act with the red little arrows, kind of thick arrows, right in the middle. Section 4 of the standard starts at the top, quality management system. Section 5, right smack in the middle, leadership. Section 6 on the left-hand side, it's all about planning. Section 7 and 8, it's all about support and operation. Section 9, it's about performance evaluation. Section 10, it's about improvement. It's cyclical, plan, do, check, act. Okay, that's what's in the early stages of the ISO 9001 standard. This is what it's about. This is what it's based on. Exactly what Kaizen is based on. This was a document that I developed many years ago with a home building organization. This was all their processes and showing the relationship between all these. This could be developed into or transformed into a value stream mapping with post-it notes on a piece of brown butcher paper up on a wall with post-it notes all over. And we could start identifying and looking for the waste and looking how to improve this process. But this was page 2 of a quality manual for an ISO 9001 system. It's a value stream map, or it could be a value stream map. The relationship is uncanny. The relationship is so strong between the two. The other relationships is that, you know, in the Kaizen world, we talk about value streams, value stream mapping, value streams. We also talk about process flows. In ISO, it talks about procedures, but procedures, when broken down, can be value streams. I remember years ago working with a company where we did a value stream map of the entire process, and we developed a future value stream map. And I asked the team, said, so what does this now become? And the president, who was strongly involved in the whole activity, said, well, this is going to be our new procedure. And so the relationship between the two is very strong and should be. But in reality, when you do a Kaizen event, how many people really look at the procedures and vice versa? So an overall system, continuous improvement management system, can start with the high level, the quality management system, and right smack in the middle are the hows, how to do it all, and end up with the quality management system, kind of like bookends. But it's all integrated. It's all integrated within each other. One big happy system focused on continuous improvement. Now, going on, what is the continued relationship between Kaizen and the quality management system? Going to the second level. So we just talked about principles. So what about the second? What about the culture and the practices? Well, a supervisor's role at the high level is to ensure the process is run as designed and to always improve, continuously improve. So some of the cultural elements, so we're talking about culture, are the development of leader standard work, visual management, having huddle meetings, and being effective at the Gemba. Now, this is from a company. This is one of their examples of leader standard work. They say that one of the things that a person must do, a leader must do, this might be a team leader, is fill out performance tracking sheets every single day, hold a startup meeting every single day, plan for manpower every single day. Ensure 5S tasks are completed every day. Audit operator standard work every day. Work on continuous improvement every day. This is the must for a certain level of a person, of an organization, in an organization. Now, how does leader standard work? That type of document, this is what a leader must do, what I just showed you. How does that relate to ISO 9001? Well, ISO 9001 says we must define organizational roles, responsibilities, and authorities. Well, how do we do that? Well, a lot of times we do that through job descriptions, but no one ever looks at job descriptions. But we can do a good portion of that with leader standard work. Leader standard work is defining someone's role and responsibility, especially as it concerns continuous improvement. ISO 9001 also requires internal audits. Part of leader standard work should be doing internal audits, not, and I'm talking about for team leaders and group leaders, not an auditor, not a quality management system auditor, but a team leader, a group leader should be doing internal audits. And this can be part of the leader standard work. And ISO 9001 also requires continual improvement. Well, leader standard work, as you see from this example, work on continuous improvement. That's what leader standard work says. Leader standard work just says, okay, you must do this daily, and you must do this for a time element of maybe whatever's dictated on the leader standard work, maybe a half hour, an hour, whatever it is per day. So leader standard work provides the how to accomplish everything that ISO 9001 is requiring here. Also, from a cultural standpoint, we have visual management in huddle meetings. This is a leader standard. This is things that are required, or we talk from a cultural standpoint for Kaizen. We should have visual management. We call this at the Kaizen Institute, we call it daily Kaizen. Well, ISO 9001 says we need to have effective communication at all levels within the organization. Well, this is by far extremely one of the most effective ways of communicating how well we're doing and who's doing what and responsibilities. ISO 9001 says we're all supposed to have management reviews. This is management reviews. These are management reviews. And we have multiple tiers, and this could go all the way up to the highest level. This is a way to accomplish management reviews. In ISO 9001, it talks about production and service provision, section 8.5 of the standard. This also is there to accomplish that. And then section 9.1 of ISO 9001 talks about monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. This is what we're doing. When we do visual management, we are monitoring how well we're doing in that day. We are measuring, we're analyzing the results, and we're evaluating the results, and we're taking action on the results. This is a way to accomplish what ISO 9001 is requiring, but to do so really effectively. Now, the other cultural element, remember I showed you the list of the four cultural elements. The last one is Gemba effectiveness. How does that relate to ISO 9001? Well, first of all, principles, three of the principles: the leadership principle, the evidence-based decision-making, and process approach. This is about going to the Gemba, doing Gemba walks, doing Kamishibai or process audits, coaching people. These are all related to the principles of ISO 9001. There's also a section in ISO 9001, 5.1, called leadership and commitment. This is about developing leaders. Gemba effectiveness and being at the Gemba is about developing leaders. And finally, Gemba effectiveness strongly relates to improving, continual improvement of the system. We focus in on this because our systems and what we want to do is to make sure that we're not blaming people. When we go to the Gemba, when we do Gemba walks, when we are coaching, we are trying to find out the real truth. What is really going on with the system? What is really happening? And it's not about blaming people, but it's about blaming the system and the process. So we want to throw out the idea of blaming people. And one of the things I read about many years ago, I can't remember what book it was, but was about creating a stop doing list. And so maybe you want to put this on your to-do list, create a stop doing list. And some of the things that we should do is to stop blaming people. And we do that by putting good systems in place, good Gemba walks, good root cause analysis tools. But we don't want to blame people, because when we blame people, people are going to hide problems. And when we hide problems, there is no continuous improvement. So overall, what we're trying to do is develop this fully integrated continuous improvement management system. And we can do that. We can do that through the full integration of everything. Now, the third level are tools. So where do the tools come in? So there's a lot of tools within Kaizen. Many of you know many of them. How does that relate to ISO 9001? Well, there's a strong relationship. First, we'll start at the high level. A principle. one of the principles of ISO 9001 on the right side is evidence-based decision making. It's a principle. In the Kaizen world, we talk about a word called nimawashi, which is making decisions slowly by consensus, thoroughly considering all options and implement rapidly. This is the philosophy that we believe in the Kaizen world. This will allow us to provide evidence-based decision making. As we lay out our decision options, develop many options, lay them out, weigh them against impact and cost, etc., perhaps on a matrix like you see, and make good decisions. So ISO 9001 says we should do this in principle. Nimawashi is the tool that we can use, specifically a tool like what you see in front of you. Now, another big tool, major tool in the Kaizen world is Hoshin Kanri. And on the left-hand side, you see a 5-step process. This tool within a tool is called the X matrix. Kind of forms the letter X if you cross the grid pattern. Starts off in the very bottom, section 1 or step 1, with determining 3 to 5 year objectives. Then we lay it out, go to step 2, and we look at what are the annual objectives for the first year. Then we go to step 3 on top, and we say, what are the improvement priorities? Here we focus in on the processes that we're going to improve, because we want to be process focused, and the lean tools that we're going to use, such as value stream mapping, Kaizen events, daily Kaizen, etc. And then number 4, we look at how much, what are the KPIs, the specific KPIs that we want to improve for those processes? What are our targets? And 5, we assign responsibility. So how does this relate to ISO 9001? Big time. In the very beginning, even before step 1 in Hoshin Kanri, we say, what is the mission? A mission sometimes is very similar to a quality policy. And so we need to establish a quality policy in ISO 9001. This is huge input into Hoshin Kanri. Then ISO 9001 says we got to establish quality objectives and planning to achieve them. And it also says that we have to do so for every level and every function within the group. This is what this tool does. This is the way to do it. Hoshin Kanri is the way to achieve what ISO 9001 is telling us we should achieve. This is the tool on how we can do it. Communication. The communication is we're starting at the very highest level, and then we're cascading all of the actions and the improvement actions down to the team level. This is about communication of what are the overall long-term objectives and the short-term objectives for the company, and what are the improvements that we're going to work on. And then management review is the other tool that it focuses in on. In Lean, we talk about total productive maintenance, including such things as autonomous maintenance and getting operators strongly involved in a cohesive manner with maintenance. In ISO 9001, we say we have to have good infrastructure. There's a whole infrastructure section, 7.1.3. What's the tool that we can use? TPM. In ISO 9001, it says we have to develop on the right side an environment for the operation of processes, and we have to have a suitable infrastructure and environment for the operation of those processes. The tool of 5S does that for us. It makes our process, our workplace, suitable so that we can make good product and have good flow. ISO 9001 also says we should have documented information that's available and suitable for use, and it is adequately protected. Okay, we bring 5S into the electronic world. One of the webinars that we gave a few weeks ago was about electronic or digital 5S. Is 5S'ing files and folders and so forth. ISO 9001 wants it to be available and easy to get to and suitable for use and adequately protected. A 5S system, digital 5S system will provide this. It provides the how. In the lean world, in the Kaizen world, we talk about the need for standards, big time. Standards are really important. One of the tools that we use sometimes is training within industry, a systematic process for training people, standardized way of training people effectively and respectfully. ISO 9001 says we have to ensure competence, and this is a tool to do that, big time. It also says in ISO 9001 we have to have documented information determined by the organization as being necessary for the effectiveness of the quality management system. So we can develop our own standards and procedures, but in the Kaizen world we want to make them visual and easy to see and easy to read and easy to use. So in TWI, we have documents like a job breakdown sheet. This is a very simple job breakdown sheet that was actually used in TWI training in the United States in the 1940s. This was the process of how to develop a fire underwriter's knot. If we wrote this out in work instruction format, it would be 13 steps and about 120 words. In the TWI fashion, in the job breakdown sheet fashion, it's 5 steps and about 36 words. Huge decrease in the amount of words, but this is an easy to use training document. to ensure competency, and it's very respectful to the individual. The teaching pattern that we use in TWI is like this. Step one, big step one is prepare. Then step two is we present. The trainer presents an activity, a task, a work instruction, but using the job breakdown sheet that I just showed you, and they repeat it 3 times. First highlighting the major steps, which is the first column of the document, then the key points, then the reasons why. Then we turn it over to the trainee and they try it out. And they do it silently the first time. Then they do it with major steps. Then they do it again with key points, and then reasons why. This is a way to ensure that we are training slowly in bits and pieces, one piece flow of gaining knowledge rather than training someone all in a batch. It's very respectful and it's very effective. We can use TWI to make sure that we comply with true competency of individuals and truly understanding the process. From a Kaizen standpoint, we talk about Jidoka or automation. Okay, this is the integration of machine and man to make sure that bad product doesn't get out the door or move on to the next step. In ISO 9001, we talk about monitoring and measuring resources. And specifically in 851C, the implementation of monitoring and measurement activities at appropriate stages to verify that criteria for control of processes or outputs have been met. Again, blah, 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 blah. How do we do this? We do this by developing automation and ways to identify failures or defects and spit them out or identify or signal someone so that they can react to it and do something about it. That's the tool that we can use to comply with ISO 9001. In ISO 9001, there's a section in 8.1. It's called Operational Planning and Control. A tool that we can use is production leveling, or Haijunka, so that we don't make too much of product A and we don't have enough of B and C. We level out the production so that we have incremental amounts of inventory building up at the appropriate level for products A, B, and C. It is a tool that we can use for effective operational planning and control. ISO 9001 again talks about operational planning and control and preservation of the product that we have and the components that we have. Kanban and supermarkets are tools that we have in place that we use that help, strongly help, the operational planning and control, and it preserves our product by making sure that we don't provide too much product and we don't hide product. We have the right amount of product at the right locations at the right time, all the time. It controls inventory levels to a certain level that's manageable and we don't have waste, thus preserving product. This is the way, the tools, how to comply with ISO 9001. ISO 9001 in this newest standard, 2015, entered into the mistake-proofing world a bit by referring to a new requirement, the implementation of actions to prevent human error. What do we do in the Kaizen world? Mistake-proofing, or poka-yoke. And we do that, and these are the devices and the ways that we can make sure that we don't have human errors. Mistake-proofing is huge. My background is as an engineer. I was never taught in engineering school. I was never taught my first companies how to mistake-proof, how to design for mistake-proofing. It's an absolute necessity. And ISO 9001 requires us to look at it. Poka-yoke is the tools that we can use to make sure that we are preventing human error. ISO 9001 talks about internal auditing. In Kaizen, we talk about Kamishibai, which is it's a layered type of audit. It's very visual. It's very effective. These are little cards, green cards, red cards that are hung up on a visual board. And the process of doing an audit might say the team leader is going to do a daily audit or twice daily audit, and they're going to pull a card at random, and the card's going to say what to audit. And the audit in the lean world, in the Kaizen world, is going to be a short audit. It's going to be frequent and short, maybe 15 minutes max. They do the audit, they hang the card back up on a board, green side out if everything's good, red side out if there's a problem, and then they record the problem perhaps on a 3C form or some kind of simple corrective action form. Okay, so that we know the audit was done, it's simple, and it's being done every day instead of doing it in a batch. Doing it in a batch does not work. Every day works well. It's like when you ask your kid to clean your room, to clean their room. If you don't check on it for 6 months, it's going to be just an absolute mess. But if you check on it every single day and you see the things out of order, we can correct those things and it's manageable. In ISO 9001, we talk about nonconformities and corrective actions and a continual improvement system. Many of you know in the Kaizen world, we have Kaizen events. And oftentimes in the Kaizen event, we use the A3 problem-solving methodology. This is very much related to each other, and this is the tool that we can use. So the idea is to bring it all together. Bring in Kaizen, bring in the quality management system, all as one system. So that kind of brings us to the conclusion of this. There is more content on integrating Kaizen and a quality management system at Kaizen Institute Online, our media partner. Kaizen Institute Online, here's some information about it. They do have lots of videos, over 250 videos on different topics. They're all very short micro videos of about an average of 3 minutes. You can go there, you can see 1 minute previews on each of these videos if you wish to go there. This is what the layout looks like, and it talks about the micro videos. There are 18 courses in all, 262 micro videos. There is per seating pricing, and there is a 1-year subscription that you could adhere to. All of it is on the website. The information is on the website. There is a discount. If you go to Kaizen Institute Online discount, online.com, there's a 50% off discount code if you type in Calgary1, and that discount is until May 15th. So I would encourage you to go ahead and look at that. We do have more webinars coming up, including this Thursday. You should, if you registered for this event, you should be getting information, or you should have received information about this webinar presented by Jesse Martin. It's Kaizen Health and Energy. There are 2 options, one during the day and one during the evening. Next week, Chuck Cherry will be presenting simple problem solving, and then we have other subsequent webinars coming up in the near future as well, including a Kaizen happy hour that we will describe more, where we ask you to make a presentation in a very simple 20 slide, 20 second per slide format. More information about that forthcoming. Our contact information is as such. You please reach out to us. As Chuck mentioned before, this webinar is recorded, and you will have access to it. Chuck's going to talk about that shortly. And Chuck, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then we can do a brief Q&A.
Thanks, Mike. That was great. So yeah, we're going to do our question and answer. Before we get into that, though, I'll just remind everybody that you will be receiving an email following the conclusion of this webinar, and that email will contain a link to download the PDF of the slides. There'll also be a link to a survey. If you fill out that survey within 24 hours of receiving it, you will get a certificate of attendance for this webinar, in case that's handy for you with the organization that you work for or belong to. So look for that as we get along. You'll also get a link to our YouTube channel where you'll be able to see the recording of this webinar and the other webinars that we've done over the past few weeks. So we're going to go to our Q&A. So now, Mike, we have many questions for you. And the first one, what can be some KPIs for measuring the integration of the 2 complementary forces, Lean and ISO 9001?
What could be a KPI? Well, that's a very good question. I would say that identify quote unquote tools that are used currently by your organization. Now that could be Kanban, that could be supermarkets, that could be Jidoka, that could be visual management, it could be Gemba walks, etc. And identify all of those and identify how many you have. Now that may increase or decrease with time. But then talk about what is the integration. So if you have 20 of those tools or 10 of those tools, I would come up with a format to say that we're going to be fully integrated within a certain time period, whatever that might be, 6 months, making something up, and that each of these 10 tools would be somehow fully integrated after they're understood very well and rolled out and implemented, and lay out a pattern to identify the integration speed. So if you're trying to integrate 1 or 2 tools per month or whatever it might be, lay it out such as that. That's an option I think I would look at.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Hey, Mike, I'm going to ask you to do something. Can you scroll back in your slides to slide 22? We never did see that, and some of the folks it's the one with the 5 principles, the 5 lean principles on it, slide number 22. If we could just maybe put that up while we do there we go, because there was a couple of comments that was when we got stuck.
Okay.
So Lean Six Sigma and Kaizen. What are the pros and cons in using one or the other? And Lean Six Sigma is popular compared to Kaizen. Is that true?
I don't understand the second part of that question, but
I think we're asking which one is more popular, Lean Six Sigma or Kaizen.
Okay. Well, so over the years, you had Lean from the Toyota production system, and it was developing on its own. Then you had GE and Motorola developing Six Sigma. Okay, and at some point along the ages, probably I think back in the 90s, consulting group kind of merged them together, and they brought them together as Lean Six Sigma. And there's different reasons for that and so forth, but so they were brought together as a big package, and then but as years went on, we noticed that especially with HR folks. When their resumes were being developed and job descriptions were being developed, that they were starting to diverge. So they converged, Lean and Six Sigma converged, and then they began to diverge. And the reason they began to diverge was because there was more and more managers, CEOs, leaders who wanted focus on Kaizen, on Lean, because that's what was driving the improvements. And Six Sigma wasn't driving as many of the benefits. In principle, there's lots of differences. I wrote an article years ago. It was called Lean Six Sigma, an oxymoron. And because I was trying to state that there's a lot of principles that are different. I have a Six Sigma black belt. I'm not saying anything's wrong with it. There's a lot of great tools. I used to teach tools in the Six Sigma repertoire. That's how I made my living in the very beginning, teaching things like design of experiments and so forth, which kind of got sucked into Six Sigma. But it has its purposes. It has its benefits. Six Sigma can help to erase and improve and problem solve difficult problems. But the vast majority of problems are not difficult, and they're system oriented. And so the methodology that in the Kaizen world is much more powerful to make a much more bigger impact overall to the organization. And so the two kind of diverged. I obviously think by far and away the Kaizen methodology, which is about respect for people. Six Sigma doesn't really talk about people. It's more project based. Six Sigma is not as people oriented. Six Sigma also has people who are specialized. They have green belts and they have special belts and so forth, and they're specialized, and they're the only ones that can make improvements in the company. That's what you hear. You've always heard that for many years and decades. Whereas in the Kaizen world, everyone makes improvements. Everyone is involved in making improvements. And so it's got much more effective staying power, and there's much more interest overall in Kaizen, in Lean, than there is in Six Sigma in today's world.
Thanks, Mike. So for our next question, we've got how should the linkage of KPIs between the quality management system and Kaizen be addressed in an organization?
They're one and the same. I mean, if I was to make a suggestion to a company, I would start off with Hoshin Kanri, and that's where you develop. That's where you're going to develop your KPIs. Now, as you do that, as you use that tool, then those are exactly the objectives, the KPIs that we're using for the quality management system. It's one and the same. It's what would be hard for an organization to do is if you have quality objectives or different types of objectives that are just somehow related to the quality management system, and then you have the Lean folks and the quality and the Kaizen folks over here who have a different set, and now we're trying to find out how to link them. Well, it's probably best to start over at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, and do Hoshin Kanri and just say we're going to have one set of objectives, KPIs overall, because we have one system. We are one company. So it's almost like don't try to. You could integrate. You could try to integrate, but we just need to make sure that both areas, both organizations, both systems have one overall. And it's probably best to start fresh at some point in time with Hoshin Kanri process.
Thanks, Mike. Just for everybody who's still with us here, the survey email has been sent out. And again, I just want to remind you one more time, fill in that survey within 24 hours and you'll get a certificate of attendance for this webinar. Next question, and I love this question. How would you get over the hurdle of getting leadership to support continual improvement of the quality management system through Kaizen events, Mike?
Well, you can definitely show them this webinar since you have access to it, or I would be happy to talk to them. Free of charge, I'd be happy to have a phone call with them about this because I'm very passionate about this. People just don't see it. Years ago when I started to do this, this integration, the biggest comment that I heard people say to me is, no one's talking about this. No one's talking about this integration between the two. I've never heard of it before. And to me, just working in both worlds just makes it, for me, it's kind of like common sense now. They don't see it. People don't see it. It's like that boss I was talking about, the onset of this webinar, this general manager. He didn't see the relationship between the two. But once you point out that all of the tools that we use in the Kaizen world are just right there. I mean, they're how to implement the QMS. Plus, the other thing is that just drives CEOs up a wall, or presidents up a wall, is that they always say this quality management system, this certificate's not getting me anything. They don't want to put any money into it. It's not doing anything for me. Most of them will agree to that. They don't like management review meetings. Most people say, oh God, here we go. We're going to go through the management review meeting because we have to, because we're showing the auditor. Well, that's crazy. We got to be showing value. We got to say, wait a minute, there's value in management review. It's just how we're doing it is not right. There's different ways of doing it. There's nothing in ISO 9001 that says you must do it every 6 months or every month. You can do it in incremental pieces. You can break it up however you want. You can cover some topics every day, some topics once a quarter. You can put this into your daily management system. Most CEOs and presidents know and will say that the quality management system is not bringing anything to us except for the certification. You start there, and then you talk about how we can make it more valuable by integrating Kaizen into it.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, can you expand on what a Gemba walk is a little more, please, in reference to Kaizen?
Absolutely. Gemba walk. Gemba means the place where value is added. So the idea behind it is get out of your offices, get out of the conference room, and go to the Gemba. Now, we can do this virtually. I had a webinar on virtual Gemba walks, especially for transactional world, because the Gemba is right here in front of us as we're communicating via WebEx or Teams or Zoom or whatever. But a Gemba walk is also a big subset of a Gemba walk is how to talk to people, how you actually coach them. So you go there, and it's usually no more than 2 to 3 people. Some people talk about Gemba walks, a group of 10 people. It doesn't work that way, because it's a focus in on watching the process, not data, not a huddle board, but watching the process and identifying and seeing waste for what it is. Watching the process and then talking about the waste and identifying and empathizing with the waste, and then asking questions as a Gemba walker, as a coach. What can we do about this? What do you see here? What are your assumptions? Because a Gemba walker is trying to do 3 things. They're trying to get the person that they're talking to see the waste, because we all don't see waste very well. We get used to it. To sit back and watch the process for a while, relaxed, and actually watch what's going on, and then to get them to think. What are the assumptions? Why do we think that way? Why does it have to be this way? What's the purpose of this? And then get them to take action. So it's about giving them ownership, giving them a chance to move on, to take ownership, to see the waste and want to make improvements. So that's what a good Gemba walk is in a very brief nutshell. But there's a skill to doing it, and look at, some of you may have heard of this, and you could look it up. Go on to Google and Google the Ono Circle. The Ono Circle, OHNO. Ono is last name of Taiichi Ono, and Taiichi Ono was one of the architects of the Toyota production system. Used to say he used to take people to the Ono Circle, and the Ono Circle would be out on the production floor, and it might be a brand new employee, perhaps an engineer, and he would take a piece of chalk and he'd draw on the floor, on the ground, a big circle, and he would say, stand there, and he would face him towards a process, and he would say nothing else. That was it, just this, because he wanted to give them the idea that you got to watch the process. That's where the stuff is done. That's where action's taking place. That's a Gemba walk. And then we talk about it later. So there's a lot of skill in it. It's really important to determine, to become process focused and to help improve the process. And it's about respect of the individuals, because we ask them questions. We go into it as a learner. We want to learn from them. They're the experts. And so it's very respectful.
Thanks, Mike. And just for anybody who's still with us, if you want more information on Gemba walks, Mike actually did a webinar on virtual Gemba walks that you'll find on our YouTube channel if you search for Kaizen Institute North America on YouTube. Mike, next question. If you wanted to be compliant with IATF, and I don't have what that is,
I know.
And it is a requirement to their customers, can you implement Kaizen and still be compliant with IATF? Absolutely.
First of all, IATF, for those who don't know, they're talking about the automotive standard. I referred to it as 16949 before. That's what this person's referring to. They work in the automotive industry, and absolutely, I mean, oh my God, that's what they want, and that's what your customers want. I mean, they probably want you to implement Kaizen methodologies, almost even more so than certification. Well, maybe I shouldn't go that far, but that's effective implementation. And an auditor, a registrar, a lot of registrars don't know about Kaizen. They don't have that background, so you probably blow them away and really impress them. But who cares, right? Who cares about impressing auditors? I don't care. It's always about impressing your people first, impressing the employees. But absolutely, any auditor or the IATF or the 6949 system with Kaizen integrated into it you can be, of course, fully compliant, and even more so. You're going above and beyond what the requirements are.
Okay, Mike, before we go on to the next question, maybe go back to the slide that had the discount code for Kaizen Online again, just in case. We're getting a request to see that again. Thank you. Mike, can you give us an example of daily Kaizen activities?
Daily Kaizen activities, we talk about 4 different levels. Plus, if you want to call planning as a 5th level or step 0, it's step 0 is planning. But the 4 different levels is about, number 1, team organization. Team organization primarily talks about, as I referred to today a bit, the huddle boards. Or if you want to call them daily accountability boards, it refers to the daily meetings, the huddle meetings, visual management. But it also talks about what is the proper ratio of team leaders to team members. And our guidance is somewhere in that area 4 to 8 team members per team leaders. So team leaders can do some very important things. The very important things that team leaders need to do. The golden rules, if you will, is to always improve the process, is to monitor the process and show the results of the process, and to always be there whenever there's a problem, immediate action. So those are the golden rules. So that's what we call level 1, and that's all falls under the umbrella of team organization. Level 2 is workplace organization. That's where 5S kind of fits in. So what is that workplace organization? But really not just 5S from a housekeeping standpoint, but from the standpoint of really making sure that you got good flow within a work cell. Okay, and then level 3 of daily Kaizen is about developing standards, whether they're TWI or visual management standards or whatever kind of standards, but is developing standards, and we call it SDCA. Standardize, do, check, act. So we develop standards, we implement them, we train them, we check on the results, we act upon them, we modify them, we roll it out, whatever it might be, in a continuous fashion. And then level 4 is PDCA. And many of you know PDCA. That's the philosophy, but the tool behind it might be a simple 3C4. That's part of visual management. It's part of the team organization. And that's where we solve simple problems at the natural team level, where the natural team or the team members get together on a daily basis. So that's what makes up what we call daily Kaizen.
Thanks, Mike. So we've got another question here, and here we're talking about relating Kaizen to the context of the organization, and the person goes on to explain in Section 4 of ISO 9001. And the quote is, "The organization shall determine external and internal issues that are relevant to its purpose and its strategic direction, and that affect its ability to achieve the intended results of its quality management system, i.e. risks and opportunities and expectations of interested parties." How does Kaizen relate to that?
Okay, good question. And again, it's kind of written like a legal document. I think there's a skill in looking at these so-called legal, they're not legal documents, but they almost like legal documents, and saying, okay, what does that mean in layman's terms? What does that mean to me? Okay, so what this means to me is and how it relates to Kaizen is in the beginning, Hoshin Kanri. Now, before Hoshin Kanri, one of the things that we recommend is doing a SWOT analysis. And everyone is familiar with SWOT analysis. It doesn't, a lot of people are. It doesn't necessarily fall under the Kaizen umbrella, but it is a tool that we use and folks in the quality world use as well. And SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, well, you know, weaknesses and threats, those are like risks that we just read out of the standard, what you just read out of the standard. And so preceding Hoshin Kanri, what I do is with my clients is ensure that we do a fully effective SWOT analysis, which takes into account internal and external influences and risks and opportunities. Everything you just read, it takes into account all of that. That is used in developing our 3 to 5 year strategic objectives. That is used in developing our 3 to 5 year strategic objectives, which is the first part of Hoshin Kanri. Okay. So obviously today's world, and I think we want to give a webinar on this, although it's not fully developed yet, but I think we want to talk about this because in today's world, probably all of us, most of us, missed a threat, and that was the threat of COVID-19, and that's why a lot of us are caught at all areas, all institutions, all organizations, political organizations, whatever it is. We missed this threat, so maybe we weren't properly ready for this. But going ahead, I know when I work with my clients and others, I'm sure we're going to be opening up our minds to other threats and risks that are out there to make sure that we develop our systems and we are prepared in advance for something like this. Thanks, Mike.
How can we use Kaizen principles in ISO 9001's clause 8.3? Would Poka-yoke or some other method help with that?
Okay, so 8.3, you guys are going to challenge me on 8.3. Well, yeah, that 8.3 is the big one on design and development of products and services. I almost had a slide on this. It's a great question. I used to have a slide on this, one slide. And the reason I did that was because the automotive guys, the guys who have the standard 16949, focus in on process design. This standard 8.3 is product design primarily. And so the question the person has is, how does Kaizen relate to product design? Well, absolutely, quite a bit. And I've done a lot of work with this in the past. There is so much waste, as you probably know. There are so many handoffs of documents, of information, of knowledge when you're designing a product. And the process might be 12 months, 18 months, 3 years. It's a huge process. And it's riddled with waste and handoffs. And it's an immense problem. And we don't focus in on this. But there is something called lean product and process design. And it's using the same concepts that we use in the production world, using it in the design world. It's absolutely applicable. The idea of visual management in the design world, in the engineering world, is absolutely important. The idea of having daily meetings, or perhaps maybe every other day meetings in the design world, is still important, because what we want to do is make sure that we capture problems, we see problems in the early stages. We don't want someone to go down a path of designing a product for 3 months and have a design review in a batch when it's too late and say, oh, no, doesn't meet the requirements. Not what we want to do. Let's go down a different path. That's wasteful. That's incredibly wasteful. So it's important to have visual management and daily meetings or every other day meetings in the design world and understand what is the work plan of each of the different engineers? And what are their KPIs? And what are they trying to accomplish? And how well are we doing that on a daily basis or every other day basis? So the other part of it is to look at the big process and do a value stream map on the current design process, and start improving the design process right now, and get rid of all the handoffs, finding different ways of conceptually getting rid of all of those handoffs, and treating things as events. So throughout the design process, you might have major different events, and maybe one of them up front is an event on establishing customer requirements. And by an event, I mean it might be a day or two, full days or two, of just all the cross-functional team members working together to identify all of the customer's needs and requirements. And that's treated as an event rather than doing it piecemeal. Okay, we treat it as an event, and then there might be other events that occur throughout the process. So we use Kaizen events in the design process. But as I said before, the visual management becomes extremely important. All of the tools, pretty much all the tools, I believe. Someone could challenge me on that, and maybe they're right. But most of the tools, how's that? Most of the tools that we teach and preach about Kaizen can be used in any process. It's a matter of thinking conceptually and saying, okay, I get the concept behind this. Now, how does this apply to this world? How can we make it apply to this world?
Thanks, Mike. So how do you implement Hijunka? Nicole has bottlenecks in her manufacturing process, but they don't know how to begin the leveling process.
Okay, I hate to divert this question because that's a very deep topic. It's very involved, and I do believe we are supposed to be. I hate to do this, but I'm going to do this. We're supposed to have a webinar coming up on internal logistics, and at that point in time, we should be covering things like Hijunka. But it's a big topic, and this topic we're primarily talking about is the integration between the two. So
right. And that's also something that we might be able to take offline as well if the
Sure.
person would reach out. Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mike. How do you apply Kaizen methodology to achieve the highest operational efficiency in operations within the company's sales department? What do you use in sales?
I'm sorry, Chuck, could you repeat the question?
Sure. How do you apply Kaizen methodology to achieve high operational efficiency within the company's sales department?
Okay, I would start off, and we do have how do I want to say it? Materials, training, events geared towards sales and innovation and design, but primarily sales as we're talking about. But what we like to do is with anything, any process, is because we're process focused. It's all about process. Sales has a process. Sales has a process. It might not be documented. It might be scattered. It might be inconsistent, but there's a process. And so we always start with value stream map the current process. Let's see what we have. And from there, you determine what is your game plan. What are the actions you're going to take? You cannot determine. I can't say for someone, this is what you shall do. I don't know. Every sales process is different. Every company is different. It starts with value stream mapping the process, identifying the waste. And when you identify the waste, then you start to identify the tools or the focus areas that we want to use in certain areas, depending on what we see when we lay out the current state.
Thanks, Mike. We're getting towards the end of our questions now. ISO 9001 focuses mainly on risk and opportunity. How does that link to Kaizen?
Well, I think I kind of answered that, I believe, earlier. When I talked about the SWOT analysis at a high level, okay? So doing the SWOT analysis, developing strategic objectives at the high level, cascading those down into actionable events and actions to do. So it's about that. But for those who are ISO 9001 certified, you know that there was a change. Before we used to talk about preventive actions. Now preventive actions went away. And now we talk about risks. Well, did preventive actions really go away? When you look at, you may know that there are 7 process wastes, or some of you call it 8. It doesn't matter, but 7 or 8 process wastes that we focus in on. One of the wastes is defects. When you see a defect, that should result in a corrective action. When you see the other 7 wastes, transportation, inventory, waiting, motion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, those used to or could have resulted in preventive actions. Those wastes, those other 6 wastes are risks to the organizations. That's what it is. When you have too much inventory of an item, that's a risk to the organization, because now you don't have the flexibility that was used, the material was used to make those products. And now you also risk not having other products because you spent all the time making this product. When there's too much waiting in the process, that's a risk to on-time delivery. When there's too much transportation, that's a risk to people. That's a risk to the product and damaging the product. The wastes that we refer to are risks. And every one of those risks, every one of those wastes that we talk about, we should be doing something to eliminate them. And we can do that through a combined Kaizen quality management system focus.
Thanks, Mike. Here's one. I don't know if you want to answer this one or not, but I'm going to say it anyway. What's the ultimate objective? Would you implement Kaizen or go for ISO 9001 certification?
If you want results, you implement Kaizen. If you have to do both, integrate them. I mean, again, the honest truth is that companies have to be certified. So we don't just say, okay, we have to be certified and okay, get the certification, but don't find value in it. You gotta find value in it. So if you have to be certified, make sure that you integrate the Kaizen approach into it to make sure it has value. If you have nothing, if you're starting off with nothing right now, then I would definitely go down the path of Kaizen first, because that's where you're going to get true results and you're going to start developing culture and the tools. Then you can get certified to bring it all together, to make sure that the two are integrated. The integration would be a lot easier that way because you have all the tools. Now you just have to, your processes or procedures or whatever have to refer to those tools.
Thanks, Mike. And so we're coming up on the last question here, and I'll just remind everybody who's still with us, the survey link has been sent out via email. It's also got a link to download the PDFs, etc. Send that survey back within 24 hours to get your attendance certificate. Last question, Mike.
Okay.
So some people think the quality management is sort of applicable during enormous business situations, but when the stuff hits the fan and we've got firefighting going on, people don't have time to follow the quality management procedures. And in your experience, is that something that you run into a lot?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden it's we're not going to do audits or whatever it might be. We're not going to do management review because of all the problems that we're having out there. And it goes by the wayside and we're firefighting. But, you know, a lot of our clients now are looking to use, I'll give you an example, but they're looking to use the Kaizen mindset to get through this hump, to get through this problem. So, if people are throwing it off to the side, if they're throwing off anything to the side during times of struggle, then it probably means that they weren't finding much value in it in the first place, and they were just doing it to check it off. If they're finding value in it, more than likely they're not going to get rid of it. So some of our clients, they have daily meetings, but now they're all working at home. Everyone's working at home. Did they just stop the daily meetings? No, they've increased them, in fact, because there's less communication. Because you're not face to face. And so now they're having their daily meetings that are now electronic, they're digital. They have their physical boards that used to be back at the office. Now they're all electronic, but they're basically replicates of what they had before. They're using those tools. You look at something like all the requirements, how to mitigate COVID-19 requirements right now. What are people doing? We all see it. We're going into stores, you see circles on the floor. How to stand 6 feet apart. You see signs, you see visual management, you see barriers, which is mistake proofing in front of people so that we can't spread the disease to each other. We use gloves, we use masks. All of these are part of the 5S mentality. They're also part of the mistake proofing or poka-yoke mentality. We're using them more and more, and it's coming naturally to people because they have to now. They have to now. And so if people are putting something off to the side, you have to first ask you, was there value in doing it in the first place? And then the second question you ask is, how do I make it valuable? If this is a requirement, how do I make it valuable? How do I get something out of it? And again, I'm telling you that you have to challenge yourself, the team, to do this, to focus in on this, but a lot of the Kaizen tools will make it valuable for you.
Thanks, Mike. And thanks to everybody who logged into our webinar today. That brings us to the end of our question period. We're going to give Mike a break. So thanks. Again, look in your email boxes for an email with a link to our survey and to the YouTube channel and the PDFs of the slides today. We thank you and we look forward to seeing you Thursday when we'll do our next webinar on the 6 steps to health, happiness, and motivation. Thanks, everybody. Keep Kaizening and have a great day.
Goodbye, everyone.